Okay, so, hi, my name is Peter Hess, and for the next few minutes, I will be your guest lecturer. The topic of my lecture is a brief introduction to filmmaking. So, film. What is film? Well, film is a four-letter word consisting of the letters F, I, L, and M. However, there's more to it than that, I can assure you. First and foremost, film is photography. This is something you really have to understand, because what film really is a series of individual photographs or frames that are strung together so that they produce the sensation of motion to the eyes. When the visual comes into the brain interprets it as a set of images that are now just little bits of change over time, and it produces the idea of motion, which is why film is sometimes referred to as motion picture. So in television, you have an average of 30 frames or photographs in a given second, whereas in film, like cinema releases, it's 24 frames, which is somewhat what causes the look of film quality. So, sorry, that's a different lecture. So this is the big barrier for the longest time in filmmaking. Up until really very recently, it's been very difficult for independent people to come in and make their own movies. However, recently, with the invention of the camcorder, it is really easy for anybody to enter this kind of work. We have, the iconic image of like the father recording his daughter's piano recital or something like that, or you have the soccer parent filming their child's game. I remember back when my dad got a film camera, it was a really big deal. So we have YouTube. This is, a huge place where we dump all of our films, and there's sort of this stigma that most of YouTube is just, very low quality. So what is it exactly that separates us from this? I mean, what is it that makes YouTube videos and not Hollywood production? Well, sometimes there's really not all that lot of difference between a YouTube video and a Hollywood production. Sometimes all you need is just a face. I mean, these people don't even have to be talented. They just have to, be a certain person. All it just takes is just some face, and suddenly a movie just becomes, more interesting. So we do have good movies, however. There are, many fine examples up here. Well, you may think that all these films are good maybe because they had a lot of budget going into them. Well, there are some releases out there that were made on an amateur level, and they were very popular and they were a big success. And so I want to go into detail on what makes these films sort of pop for the audience. Keys to good filmmaking include cinematography, editing, and story. Now, story is very important. Story can really outweigh the other two. For instance, in the film Clerks, you might think that cinematography and editing are, okay, they're not fantastic, but the story and the characters are really what make the movie work. The story is a little bit difficult to talk about, in a few minutes, so I figure what I'll do instead is cover the other two topics, cinematography and editing, which are ones that I'm slightly more familiar with. Cinematography. Cinematography, remember that film is photography, so you have to treat each individual frame as if it is a photograph. So this is a theory called shot composition and framing. So in these examples from There Will Be Blood, you can see the composition of the film gives it this wonderful quality where you could take an individual shot and literally just frame it. Just the beauty of the lighting, the positioning, noting how, for instance, in this shot, there's this string that leads across from the character over here all the way to Daniel Day-Lewis's character. Just a straight vision. You can really follow it with your eyes. Sometimes shot composition really gives an extra meaning to a scene. So the characters could be saying something, but there's an extra sort of subliminal quality to the footage. So for instance, here we see a separation between the characters, not only because they're not making eye contact, but also because we have a doorway and these parallel lines, and it creates this barrier between the two. Also, in these shots, you can see how there's a lot of tension in the scene. This is produced from a low-angle view, that is, the camera facing upwards to the characters. Also positioning of supporting cast of makes things, for instance, the triangular elements of these scenes really add to this tension. Editing. Now, editing allows us to move through time. It sets the pace of a film. So, for instance, in reality, this is what separates reality from film. Say I was to go home to Davis. Well, if I was to go home, I'd have to get in the car and I'd have to drive all the way to Davis. Now, I'd have experience that whole time. Now, in film, the beauty of film is that we are able to cut this down. So instead, it would rather be like a shot of me getting into a car here and then a shot of me getting out of a car in Davis. It cuts out all the boring stuff. You get the essentials. You're really allowed to jump through time, and it gives the relationship between shots in some cases. This is called a match cut, where you have a motion that's carried over between two shots. Now, the best way to give an example of this is by showing you a clip. So, for instance, in this scene, you will see how there's a movement of Daniel Day-Lewis's hand that matches with the movement of a character going to the shot. So the movement of that hand moves in the same direction and almost at the same rate as the person entering the shot. So it creates just this smooth transition between the two scenes. It also cuts out, again, a lot of time. Now, there is a very famous match cut. This is from the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's very iconic. This one not only captures the movement of an object and transitioning into another scene, it also has a symbolic quality to it, which I'll explain, as well as just cuts out a lot of time. And so you'll notice now the movement of the bone is now repeated in the movement of the spaceship. And so this is clearly a huge leap from what would be a sort of primordial level of humanity, leaping millennia into the future to the point where we've reached space travel. And an interesting element of this was that the bone is obviously used as a weapon in this case, and the ship that was supposed to pass is supposed to be containing nuclear warheads. So there's an extra sort of meaning given just by the visuals alone, no story added. Now, this is an example from a film I'll be showing you in a little bit. This is the mural project that I did for this class, and in this one you can still see the ideas of match cutting using motion. So in here you can see how, as you're drawing, the motion of the hand is captured, and then the movement of this person matches with the pencil. Again, the motion of the hand is matched as well, so that there's sort of a continuity, a nice flow to the shots.